Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by TheLines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on vacay in New Orleans. We are talking about a game in this video, including the Utah Jazz, formerly of New Orleans as well. Also have another couple of videos up for you just on this 3-game slate here on Tuesday. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. You can check out all these videos we're bringing you each and every weekday this regular season. Also head to TheLines.com. That's where you can get all the stuff we're talking about in written content from Nate and the gang. Also can use that odds finder tool on there. Make sure you're getting the best juice back across all those U.S. sports books for all these NBA bets you make. Nate, let's go ahead and get into this little slate here and then talk Jazz and Kings.
Yeah, it's a question of which game we're not going to talk about here. And it's the Celtics -9 at OKC. Those teams have some weird history going on the last couple of years where OKC's mostly been covering, but I don't really trust this iteration of the Thunder to cover even at home against a great Celtics team. Then we get into Washington +8.5 right now at Milwaukee. Totals down to 228. We will break down that game. And then we have Kings +3 at Utah. Totals at 242.5. It's what our friend Mo would call a fair line, a competitive total there. It's extremely high for good reason. I mean, Utah, you look at their recent home games, their last 4 are averaging 241, right? And it's a Sacramento team that scores a lot, gets up and down, and we've been talking a lot about Domantas Sabonis trying to play through this fractured thumb. And while his production has remained pretty good, I think he's kind of become even more of a liability defensively. Like, he's not going to put his body out there and really try to stop guys from getting inside. Was never really a plus defender down low in the first place. And so when these teams met, Lauri Markkanen really just kept Utah in it right down the line, and then they wind up covering in Sacramento. We thought the Kings could handle them at home, but they couldn't put them away. So now back home, I think you got to lean Jazz. They're another one of those teams with the crazy home road splits. Particularly just lighting it up on offense. Markkanen 16 for 24 from the field for 36 points in his last matchup here against Sabonis. So, I mean, I'm looking at his prop for sure, 25.5 points still. He's just become a leading candidate for most improved player and a real matchup problem if you don't have a guy who can really deal with him. And like I said, I don't think Sabonis is really banging with anybody at the moment. Utah is heavily 3 dependent, which I think you're going to dive into a little bit more. And Sacramento can run them off the line, but they weren't able to do that at home. I don't see much reason to have faith in them having better success on that on the road. But I mean, Sacramento's offense, I also think will be just fine. It's just that the total at this point is so high. I don't think you can bet it with confidence on the over. I think what you want is to take the Jazz here if you can get a small spread and just assume that these trends, which we've seen across the NBA really all season, are going to continue, that teams just are much, much better at home.
Yeah, I guess. It's kind of this game, like you said, it's too high to feel comfortable about an over, but like, I was trying my damnedest to figure out how to prove that we could go under in this game, and I just can't do it. You start out talking about Sac, and you could probably talk yourself into an under because it's Sac on the road, and that's the sort of the contrasting trends here is that Utah goes over a lot and definitely a ton on the road at home, just like all of the time at home. They've got the only reason they've gone under at all in their last 7 home games is because the total was 238 and they scored 235 or some shit, right? So it's still an absurdly fast offensive game. They're not even playing that fast. They're still playing at 100 to 99 to 100 pace, which is good for middle of the road, right? It's not the 103, 104 blazing speeds we see from Minnesota or Golden State at times, et cetera, et cetera. So they're just actually really efficient on offense. And you talk about Lauri Markkanen, but he needs to be considered a lot better. this team is surprising. Utah is surprising this year in a way because of the fact that they've got, a lot of us overlook the fact that they have like quality veterans on their team, from Malik Beasley to Kelly Olynyk to guys who have just been like around for a while. Jared Vanderbilt was a great pickup on defense. So like you wonder like, is this going to end at some point for Utah? And I don't think so, because I think they've got the guys to go along with it. At home, they do everything well, man. I really don't know what to say. The only thing you can look at for the under here is, like I said, Sacramento's maybe not bringing it on offense and coming along for the ride. That's all I've got. Or, potentially the fact that Sacramento is able to use the fact that they've got basically the number one 3-point defense on the road in terms of limiting makes, limiting attempts, and their opponent 3-point percentage. They're either the best or top 10 in all that stuff. So Sacramento, or Utah, they rely on the 3-pointer. We know they're fourth in 3-point, or they're fourth in terms of their percentage of field goals shot from 3, the amount of points they score from 3. They do not get to the line. They do not own the paint, as we've talked about in the past, where you could take advantage of big men playing against Sacramento to get your points and stats that way, which I would consider here as well. I mean, like I said, I want to take an under because of the splits for sack, but I can't, right? Like sacks, even if they do, fail to sort of come along to that extent, like if they score 117 points, like we're talking about here, Utah's been averaging 124 across their last 4 or 5 home games. So I don't think the limiting of of 3-pointers for sack on defense is really going to be enough. I think it's really a matter of if Utah's not going to shoot well enough to score, then you feel better about the under. But I think it's just the Jazz, man. They lost by 1 with a really solid fourth quarter against these Kings in Sacramento, and they're in that previous game that they just lost by 1 point, which was, by the way, a 251 total in Sacramento. And Utah's offense shows up a little bit more on the road than Sac's does, but still, I think you can rely on Utah getting theirs, and it's just a matter of if Sac is going to come along. But if it's a 2.5-point spread, then I'm not worried about even if Sac comes along for the ride and scoring with Utah. I still think Utah can put them away in the end.
Yeah, and it's a front end of a back-to-back for the Kings, and they go home to face Atlanta. Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter are both questionable. I mean, Huerter would be the bigger loss. He had 30 the last time these teams played at home, and Monk's been really up and down. But it is kind of a matching firepower situation if your best 2 3-point shooters aren't out there against a team that lights it up from 3 at home. That averages the second most 3-pointers made, with a 120 offensive rating. So, I mean, we're circling around like we like Utah's offense here. We would probably take their team total at 120 or whatever it is, and we're not as sure about Sac. And so, therefore, it's like at minus 2.5 or 3, you just take the home team. Exactly.
So I think, you end it with that, with the team total. That feels right. For Utah, it's 121.5, depending where you find it, 122.5. So, I'm still fine with that, right? Like I said, the 124 they've been putting up, the way that they've been scoring, the only thing you think is Sacramento's defense legit? But I would also argue that their paint defense is much worse on the road as Sacramento's, which is why teams are able to attack them a bit more there and probably don't even bother to shoot threes. Like I said, second fewest 3-point attempts against Sac, which is in part probably because they're running people off the line. But even if they are, who are they running them off the line into? Like Rashawn Holmes and Domantas Sabonis? I'm not really worried about that at that point. So, I think you feel really good about Utah being able to score and just lean on all of the bets that sort of make you rely on that and nothing else. So
Washington has won 6 of 7 here. Milwaukee has lost 5 of 6. Some of that is misleading because of, again, who's out for Milwaukee. I mean, this is like the 3rd time this year Drew's been out with a non-COVID illness. I don't know what he's got, but it seems to be affecting his play for sure. I mean, he's been pretty inconsistent on the offensive end, not really very aggressive in looking for a shot. And Giannis has just been absolutely putting this team on his back, and it hasn't even led to some wins lately. I mean, that ridiculous line he put up against Chicago in a loss, he did get over those props that we were like 55.5 PRA. No way he can do that. And he did, and they beat Minnesota, but Milwaukee's struggling. I mean, 118 defensive rating, more so struggling on offense to find anything other than Giannis doing work down low. And honestly, this is not a great matchup for him. Maybe if I hadn't already tried to sharp the under, I would be talking about it. Is 33.5 points for him tonight. I mean, he'll probably get there through sheer usage, but The Wizards with Porzingis back, of course, 98 defensive rating in his last 4, but also Rui Hachimura, who is a good matchup for Giannis, kind of that big body small forward who can follow him around. He has a nice 96 defensive rating in his last 2, and he's been unsustainably good on offense. I think the entire Wizards offense has kind of been unsustainable in this stretch, but it's certainly not going to keep firing on all cylinders, I think, against Milwaukee. Both these teams are kind of the black and blue bruisers down low that can limit the opposition. Neither of them hit threes. And especially you look at their last 4 meetings, all 4 have gone under. Milwaukee's shooting 32% from 3, scoring 103. Washington scoring 105, hitting 10 threes. Both teams getting just 14.5 free throws as well, which is like basically your only hope if you're expecting a high scoring game. Milwaukee's home road splits, they score a lot more at home. Basically the difference is they're more efficient inside the arc and get a couple more free throws, but it's not as stark as we've seen in recent seasons, right? When they had Middleton, when they had Drew playing well, and they were just getting up and down and scoring 120 at home every time. It's almost the exact same pace as on the road, almost the exact same defensive rating. And recently it's just been a struggle from beyond the arc, like I'm saying, at home. And recently they've been hemorrhaging points in the paint in their last 3, but I think that stops here with Giannis back and with them heading back home here. But Washington's defense has been really impressive across the board in their last 3. So I think they can definitely cover 8 points. I would much rather have that than the favorite here. I don't even hate a plus 300 money line, but I think it's the under that is probably your smartest bet here. If it stays around 229, it's been bet down 1 point. If it doesn't get bet down much further, because also I got to mention Bradley Beal's questionable with a hamstring, and that could really turn this into a black and blue game, as I said.
Yeah, Bradley Beal being questionable is interesting because he missed the last game, and I don't know what you want to do with that. They still scored 118 points without him. That's the takeaway from that for me is they can score without Bradley Beal, especially if they have Kristaps Porzingis. So Kristaps being back has been an incredible help to them as sort of a back to the basket scorer as well, as a scorer from deep, which is really what you've been hoping for him since he came in the league. Is he's not going to back you down and get you all the way down to the rim with his butt, but like he's 7'3", so he doesn't need much room to get over you, and he's actually like 3rd right now in terms of his percentage, his field goal percentage inside the painted area in the league. So like you got to really like what he's doing there, and that's a big reason for why they can score with and without Bradley Beal. But the reason that this Wizards team is like good at basketball now, by the way, I'll throw out Rui Hachimura as well. Coming back has looked really, really good, and maybe like a really solid trade piece if nothing else, or maybe you sign him. But either way, like his offensive output, another reason that they've been able to score 118 without Bradley Beal. But I would also add that the defense, like they're really fucking good on defense now, and that's been a huge part of it. Daniel Gafford's been a huge part of that as well. But having Kristaps in for games, their defensive rating plummets to a solid degree when Kristaps is in there as well. So everything for the Wizards is predicated really on that defense. And you look at what they've done over the course of the last like 7 games or so, where they've won 6 of those, and they've beaten some pretty good teams in there as well. That like we've talked about, they beat Philly. I don't know if you consider Phoenix good anymore, but they beat Phoenix. I consider Orlando good. They wiped the floor with them. They were missing guys, but they also beat Sac. They lost to Utah on the road, but they limited Utah to less than the 125 a game that they're averaging, so that's pretty good. But either way, it's the opponent field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, opponent assists, opponent free throw attempts, opponent rebounds, opponent points in the paint. All those things, they're dominating the paint. They're not fouling. They're not giving up easy threes. And nothing is really coming easy at this point for teams trying to play against them. So I do like the under 230. But if Giannis goes for like 42, which he's capable of and just did against Minnesota, then I do think that you just feel better about the +8, because even if Giannis does that, I feel confident in this Wizards team to be able to limit whatever anybody else is doing at this point, because of the fact that after Giannis, it's kind of similar, honestly, to Memphis's offense right now in terms of what's going on in Milwaukee. It's like one guy just go head down into the lane, either go up or kick it out for three. That's what John Morant's doing in Memphis. That's what Giannis is. That's it right now for them, and that's another reason that their 3-point percentage, which usually looks a lot better, as opposed to what it's been over the course of this losing streak. Guys like Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, and obviously Chris Middleton not in there, Drew Holiday not in there. Not much else from three. Even if you talk about Wes Matthews, Beauchamp, even Brook Lopez, all those guys are spot up 3-point shooters outside of like Chris and Drew. Nobody else is dribbling into a three at that point. So you really dependent upon Giannis doing that. If you can clog the lane with like 2 7-footers and a solid Kyle Kuzma at 6'10 playing a solid forward this season for them, I think you got to continue like the Wizards defense to be able to keep them within 8 points for sure, and probably the under, but just I feel really, really good about the +8 for that reason.
Yeah, Milwaukee, a little extra rest here, especially for the two key guys we're talking about. They've not been good covering with extra rest here, 1-3-1 against the spread on the season. They've not been good down the stretch either, 24th in fourth quarter scoring. And Washington, 7th fewest second half points per game allowed on the season. Obviously, number one in that, the last three, the number one in defensive efficiency overall in their last three. And most of it has to do with what you would need against Milwaukee, like you're saying, is length down low, size. We haven't mentioned Kyle Kuzma, who has turned into a good two-way player, and another guy who you can use as a real oversized two-guard if you need to, and had a triple-double against the Giannis-less Bucks here just a few days ago. I mean, Washington, with this style, has gone under in 7 of their last 9, and the 2 overs were at home. So that really leads into this theory that, I mean, on the road, they're going to try to win it with defense here. And certainly if they're covering, you think it's because the game's played in the 110s or lower, like the last 4 meetings have been, and therefore we're going under as well.
Yeah, I mean, just take the last game that they played, right? It's a total of 213. They score 118. The Bucks score 95. Go ahead and subtract like 7 points for the Wizards and add roughly 7 points for the Bucks. I would say with Giannis out there, I would say he's a solid 14-point swing in most games, especially when you don't have much answer for him. So if you want to look at that, you're still talking about like I said, I use all that math to say 210 to 215 total feels a lot more like what this will be like if the Wizards hang around. And if they don't, it's because their offense is anemic, and I still think that under feels pretty good about in this one. So a few ways to bet under and the Wizards to cover tonight. So Nate, let's jump into your first NBA player prop for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the Jazz Kings game. This total's been bet up to 242, so gotta like the 2 point centers, if you will, that will be going head to head here. We're each taking them. Lauri Markkanen, you're taking Domantas Sabonis. I mean, the last time out, Markkanen had 36 points on 16 for 24 shooting, and 6 of those misses were beyond the arc. So he went 1 for 7 from 3 against Sac, still had 36 points. He shoots 56% from the floor and 47% from 3 at home. That's good for a 135 offensive rating. Prop is at 25.5 points. I would like to tack on the rebounds there, 32.5 in his last 4. He's averaging 12 boards to go along with 31.5 points. Just been on a tear, including a huge game against Miami. You know, we talk about Utah being reliable to score. I mean, their last 2 home games were against Miami and Washington, 2 great defensive teams on the interior. And Markkanen's still getting his, Utah still getting many, many points at home. So I think you like the over here, because then you look at Sacramento, 123 defensive rating in their last 5. Their last 3, 5th worst defensive rating, giving up the most paint points in the league. Because as I mentioned in that game video, I don't think Sabonis, he can still contribute on offense, and he's still scoring at a high rate down low, but I don't think he's going to put his body on the line too much. He's playing with a fractured thumb and was never really a defensive stopper down low in the first place. So it should be easy for Markkanen to for those guys to just kind of trade buckets, because Markkanen ain't stopping him either.
Yeah, sure. Like, neither of these dudes want to D up. They just want to score. Or, you know, to be fair, like, Domas is filling up the stat sheet all over the place. So I'll just transition to talking about him, because it's a pretty easy segue going from Lauri Markkanen is going to score on Domantas Sabonis, and to also say, yeah, but also Domantas Sabonis is going to score on Lauri Markkanen or Kelly Olynyk. Doesn't matter. Whoever you put out there, Jared Vanderbilt's not strong enough, and is also considered probably their second big man or they're 4 at this point, where the way that Lauri Markkanen plays the 3. So either way, there's nobody out there. That's why we took him last time. That's why I kind of just look at who's the big man of playing Utah tonight. If it's somebody that I think can attack the paint and attack the boards, then I'm going to feel pretty good about it. So Domas is at 21.5 points. He already hit for us pretty nicely the other night on his 28, 11, and 8 that he scored on the Jazz in his last time out on the 30th against them. But 13 straight double-doubles. So I'm also looking at the points and rebounds, 34.5. You can get minus 104 for the points on FanDuel, minus 108 at Caesar MGM. That would be the best odds there for the points and rebounds at 34.5. So, looking at where you want to get either the combo or the points for him, I'm fine with whatever. I mean, he went 12 for 12 from the field in this last one against them. And even, despite having an injured thumb, if you will, went for 31 in the first game versus Denver, where he was sort of hurt with that thumb injury. So I think even though you mentioned that he is a little bit, it's a little bit of a problem, like putting up little lefty hooks off the glass and little tip-ins off your offensive boards doesn't really need your thumb. You can just kind of use mostly, your 4 fingers there and be fine. And in a position where Utah is so bad against, opposing centers, they have the 9th worst defensive easy for me to say, efficiency at home overall. And like I said, allowing the most points per game to centers, the 4th most rebounds to them. So there's a lot of possessions, there's a lot of rebounds, and there's not a lot of down low presence for Utah. So I always feel good about a guy like Domantas in this situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we covered it with each other's props here. I mean, it's going to be a lot of trading buckets. Maybe Walker Kessler gets out there and tries to guard Sabonis, has a big body, but I mean, he's a rookie, so I mean, he can get a nice lesson in the all the reverse pivots he learned from his daddy Arvydas. So. G'day, folks. We are going to talk about the Thunder Celtics game after all. And no, I'm not taking the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander under. They're trying to bait you into that at DraftKings with plus odds on under 28.5. Look, the last time these teams played, SGA had 37 on 13 for 26 shooting, a ridiculously high usage rate. And he only had 3 assists. He has 7 assists and 9 turnovers in 2 career games. Josh Giddey, because it's just kind of a one-man show against Boston. It's tough to bank on under 4.5 assists for a guy who's averaging 5 assists in his last 11, but they are giving you plus odds on that. I think the safer bet is under 28.5 PRA, because I think he might not be scoring very much either against a really good Boston defense. And no double-double. If he's not able to get those 10 rebounds, I think that's fair. But the big thing is the limiting the assists. That's the reason he's not going to get to PRA, because Boston allows the 2nd lowest assist to field goal ratio on the road. OKC has the 3rd to lowest assist to field goal ratio at home. Again, because it's a lot of just SGA manufacturing offense. There's not a lot of ball sharing going on here. And the Celtics have so much length on the wing and in the backcourt. Marcus Smart, and Brogdon, and Derek White, whoever you want to throw at Giddey, it's going to be tough for him to get his. And he's only averaging 14 points per game at home, so I find it hard to believe he gets to 29 PRA altogether.
Yep, I mean that's the heart of that Boston defense right now kind of seems like it's starting a little bit further out in the perimeter, right? And like guys that are, Rob Will's doing his things to a degree, but in that, let's just say that the style of play that Denver plays with a point forward like Jokic is a lot worse of a matchup for Boston, I believe, than a team where they're really playing from the outside in as opposed to any other way than more like the inside out, right? Like you get Jokic the ball at the free throw line or in the post, and your offense is money right now if you're Denver. That's not really how you're going to get points for the Thunder here. You're relying on guys like Giddey to do more, and I don't think that that's exactly what Boston's defense that's where it's strongest right now, especially with the way Marcus Smart is playing up top. So staying in this game to finish off props for today, let's go with big Papa Al Horford, Papa Al peripherals, as you look at the rebounds and assists for him at 9.5. That's at even money there for him to get over 10 or more than 9 rather. You could also look at the rebounds. That's 6.5. Getting 7 boards would be minus 120, and then a double if you think he's going to get close to the amount of rebounds he's been getting against this team. That's plus 540 for Al. Look, Rob Williams is questionable, so more time for Al. More time for Al on the road, as he's been averaging a couple more minutes a game as well this season, including 9 points, 7 boards, and 2 assists on the season on the road. The last 3 that he's played versus OKC, he's averaged actually 9 boards, 8 points, and 6 assists in that time in 32 minutes a game since he's gotten to Boston. So back to Boston, those last 3 were all against the Thunder as a member of the Celtics. And yeah, OKC, like I said, their down low defense, their paint defense, their big man rotation, not really solid. They allow the second most rebounds per game and the third most assists to centers. A bunch of points. They're still in like the bottom 5 in terms of allowing points to centers as well. They also just play at the 3rd fastest pace, so you expect there to be a decent amount of boards available. And if Boston's, as we said, Boston's team defense really, like the teeth of it is at the top. So I think you can feel good about Papa Al getting a bunch of rebounds and being able to sort of board up on the defensive end as well. So I think he's just a really good bet tonight as a big man playing against the Thunder.
Yeah, and he does have double-doubles in 2 of those 3 rematches with OKC. It's not really like a huge revenge factor at this point anymore. It's just kind of a good matchup. And his dimes are kind of being underrated here. I mean, the odds are minus 140 on him to have 1 turnover. And he's a guy who can easily get 4, 5, 6 assists just within the flow of the Celtics offense naturally. So if we're setting odds that like he's never going to turn the ball over, he's just going to keep it moving, Boston's ridiculously efficient offense is going to get him some assists. And then, like you said, the pace is just going to get him some rebounds. So that's why we like the peripheral stats more than the points.
Yeah, well said. I agree with all that. So that is all the time we have for you in our player props video on this little 3-game slate tonight. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Check out the other couple game videos we have for you. And until we see you next, happy betting.